welcome back again. We are now on to road trip for our life beginning and always. Super excited. I think this should be a fun one. We'll see. So let's get on into it. Cannot wait. And then after this, we got the DLCs to go. Alright, so road trip it is. Oh, I gotta move over again. Professional recording here. Alright, road trip, let's go. Even though you were awake, the sun had barely peeked its head above the horizon, and the sky above was still dark, though lightening by the minute. Usually you wouldn't be up so early, especially during summer vacation, but today was different. Today, instead of a lazy day you were used to, everything around you was a flurry with activity as both your family and Coase prepared for what lay ahead. Because parked in the street just outside your house was a massive RV camper, so big you couldn't even see Coase's house behind it. His parents had rented the RV a few days to take him on a short road trip to see the Redwood National Park. He glanced at Cove, who was standing nearby, taking the seat in front of him. The prospect of the trip had been a mixed bag for him, but it was only 3 days, so it seemed he was dealing with it as best he could, especially now that you and your family were joining them. You weren't sure how exactly it had happened. You knew your parents had Coase spoke to each other often, and somewhere along the way, plans were made after Cliff offered to share the space. The parents all thought it was a fantastic idea. You had already gotten a good look inside while helping to load everything in. And you had to admit that while it was a really big car, fitting that many people inside was going to be snug. Move it or lose it, kiddo. Mom bustled past with a cooler in one hand and a large bottle of water under the other. She was upbeat for this early in the morning. Mom, however, seemed to be on the other side of the wavelength. She followed behind her wife, dragging her feet on every few steps. Oh, she was cute. I wanted to need a whole jug of coffee once we hit the road. I always liked this idea, like even getting up early and going out on these cool little trips and everything. So you were rearing to Coase. Mom, you felt like you were in the middle ground between two. Yeah, I really like this. I'm ready to go. Stretched her arms out and took in some deep breaths. The air was still a little damp from the dew, but she didn't mind it. And then at the end of the chain came her sister. She had a bone to pick before the trip officially started. She rattled off critiques, adding some level of normalcy to everything new going on. I don't care why I can't sleep in the bed tonight. Jamie is the youngest and I'll never fall asleep in that loft. We're trying to make things fair on everyone. If you want to play the older card, you should be offering to take the loft both nights. It's important for a big sibling to make sacrifices for the younger ones. Oh, yes. Okay, I'm just gonna double check what ship loft. Okay. Trying to make things fair on everyone. Yeah, younger one. Yeah, as the oldest sibling, you tend to make those. What's the word? Not just sacrifices, but you relent on things, I guess. Elizabeth huffed, not happy with the answer in the slightest, and folded her arms, leaning back against the side of the RV. The trip plans had been nailed down prior. The sleeping arrangements included. Elizabeth still held on to her objection with them. There was a main area of the RV with a couch, loft, and some floor space. At the end of the car was a room with a large bed. Your moms were sharing the bed. Kyra was on the couch, and the father and son intended to sleep on the floor. The adults determined you and Elizabeth would switch between the small loft above the driver's seat and sharing the bed with moms. Fine with the arrangement, you were excited to sleep in the loft. You felt sharing a bed with your parents was going to be awkward. You were looking forward to sleep over with your moms. You were happy that it wasn't fair to sleep on the floor. Oh yeah, it kind of sucks he has to sleep on the floor. After all, it was supposed to be a trip for him and his family before yours ended up coming along too. Now he had to be kicked out of every bed to make space to put on the floor. There had to be another way to organize things so it's better for him. You offered to sleep somewhere else. You suggested sharing your loft. Cove, you said nothing. Share the loft, Cove. Cove and I can share the loft when I'm up there. I don't mind making room for him. Took a glance at Cove, but noticed that he wouldn't meet your eye in return. I wasn't able to say anything in response to the suggestion either. No, that loft is too teeny for two people, even if those people are teens. The last thing we need is one of you rolling off and crushing poor Cliff beneath you. Who will take over his driving shift? The other parents all laughed at your mom's joke. He finally caught Cove's eye and he gave you a teeny smile before shrugging. With a sigh, you had to admit defeat. Alright, you lot. Does everyone have everything you need? We're heading out in 5 minutes. Now's the time to double check. You don't want to forget something important. At the words, Elizabeth yelped and dashed back into the house, her bedhead bouncing behind her as she went. Ma came over and gave you a smile, setting her hands on her hips. How about you, Jamie? Are all your clothes packed? Toiletries, deodorant, floss, anything else you can think of? You were confident you had it all. Wanting to make sure everything was organized and ready to go, you had packed the night before and set your alarm too. Yep, I'm good. That's great. We'll have to wait for the one who weren't as organized, but we'll be heading off shortly. With a few minutes left to spare before the trip, you mentally went over what you had packed for the trip. Clothes, a pillow, and blanket. Usual day-to-day gear for most people. You also had more personal things, such as photo gaming console, pencil, and paper, your favorite stuffed animal, a couple things to read, makeup, all a couple things to read for sure. Pack one of your old favorites and new one you've never tried before. Knew you'd have plenty of time for them both on such a long drive. Everything. I usually pack my makeup. Kind of tried the idea of trying to apply it nicely in a cramped RV, but it was nothing you wanted to keep on hand. Something you wanted to keep on hand. Camera for sure. Just a little pocket camera you had gotten from your mom's, but you couldn't miss the opportunity to take some new snaps. And then, yeah. Hey, let me take that for you, Jamie. I'll stow it in the RV. There's a few spots left. It'll fit. You let Kara take your bag and gave her a grateful smile. With nothing left to do, you watched the others getting ready for the trip. Kara and Cliff seemed to have the most energy of anyone. They were finishing packing the suitcase away when your moms had gone to lock up the house. The high five whenever another one got crammed into the storage compartment of the vehicle. Even though your parents were more low-key than Co's, you could tell they were both excited for the trip. It had been a while since your family had been away anywhere together. Elizabeth skipped toward the RV, a bag slung over her shoulder, and you were surprised to see she seemed more optimistic about the whole ordeal now. Usually she wasn't one to exit confines of her room unless it was for TV or food, or to leave your family behind to be with friends. You would have thought 3 whole days packed in the RV with 6 other people would be too much for her. It was a nice surprise. You supposed any vacation was better than no vacation in her mind. Co had been pretty quiet so far, and more than anything seemed to be overwhelmed by the situation. You were excited for the trip too. You were very excited, you were eager, you were curious about the RV. I didn't say for the trip. It was great to get away and explore new places. Soon the miscellaneous remaining tasks had all been wrapped up. Cute! Everyone piled into the RV. It was officially time for the trip to start. And it did. Cliff took the first shift driving, cautiously navigated the massive car out of the narrow neighborhood streets. It was a touch and go for the first part of the journey, and Moms and Kyra were all huddled at the front, trying to get a good view of how many spaces they had on each side. There was a lot of sense of relief when the first long leg of the trip was hit, and the RV would only need to go down one stretch of highway for miles. The mom group cleared out of the driver's area, leaving Co's dad to it, taking more comfortable seats around the main cabin. You felt like you could finally relax now, too. Time slipped by as morning faded away. Before you realized it, the engine of the RV came to a stop, but only halted for a few moments as Cliff climbed out from the driver's seat and Mom took over. Mom was sitting shotgun, giving Mom a quick tutorial on the controls, as it was the first time trying anything this large. Cliff groaned as he headed towards the rest of you, stretching his arms above his head and loosening up his muscles. We're making good progress. Yeah, maybe you should take a nap in the back for a while. That was a long haul you just did, and I know you're on less sleep than usual. Cliff waved a hand, that trademark grin of his slipping into place. I don't need sleep. I've got a few more miles in the old tank. Flexed an arm, showing off his muscles to drive the point about how resilient he was home. Kyra rolled her eyes in a new swim. Dad, everybody has to sleep. Cliff shook his head at the tough guy act, though Cliff simply chuckled and ruffled his son's hair. Are we going to be driving again anytime soon, Mr. Holden? I want to know so I can prepare. Did anyone pack some rope? I might need it. There's no seatbelts up here. Elizabeth called down from where she was lounging in the locked driving compartment. She was lying on her back, her hair falling over the side and swinging around as the RV started up again and took off down the road. A bag of potato chips was balanced on Elizabeth's stomach, and she tossed the couple in her mouth right as Cliff held the hand to his chest, pretending to be offended by the remark. Kyra laughed lightheartedly. Lucky for all of us, we have enough adults to cover the shifts today. You won't be driving again until tomorrow. You stayed quiet, you shook your head at the nibbling. Phew, that's a relief. Just enough time to write my last will and testament. Not you too. The rest of the group laughed while Cliff pouted and you gave him an apologetic shrug. Mom was shouting back in her seat to join the conversation, a playful smile tilting on her lips. What I'm more worried about is this old monster getting us there and back again before falling apart. It took as though it was built in the early 90s. It must be older than some of the occupants. That's just the aesthetic of the decor. It's not that old, I think. Did you ask what year the model was before you rented it? Carl wrinkled her nose and thought. Yes, I did. I just can't remember what the answer was. Cliff chuckled at her while the rest of you let out a collective sigh. The RV lurched a little as it picked up speed, and you held onto the ladder to the loft to keep your balance. You felt something graze the top of your head before a weight settled on your brown hair. When you tilted your chin up carefully to look, you heard the rustling of a bag of chips and realized Elizabeth had rested the end of it on your head. She gestured to the opening, silently offering to share her snack. Took a handful. Sure. Reaching up, you scooped some chips. After that, the weight of the pack left your skull. You happily munched away as the conversation continued on, and you got closer and closer to your destination. Day flew by, and the group of you chatting, playing games, and passing the time together before finally arriving at the park and setting up for the night. Mom was closing the windows while everyone got ready for bed, saying goodnight to the others as she made her way to the back room. You had all had dinner together while still driving, and some hours after, had arrived at your destination and found a spot to park in for the rest of your stay. Giving a look across the front of the RV, you noticed almost everyone was there. Almost everyone there was already dozing off where they were, with Cove having completely fallen asleep curled up in the passenger seat. He must have done so while Kara was driving the last leg, and they had decided not to disturb him. Kara herself was the only one up there who was still awake, flipping through a magazine next to a portable light in her spot on the couch, seeming to her Holden needed to sleep despite his claims. Followed your moms into the back room and closed the door behind you before crawling onto the bed between them. It was a queen-size bed, so there was enough space for the three of you together without too much squishing. Get a good rest, Jamie. You've got a big day ahead of us tomorrow. I'm looking forward to the bushwalk in the morning. It's been a long time since I was out in nature like this. There will be plenty for us to see. You stayed awake for a little while longer while your moms whispered about the park and forest in general. With the sound of their voices in the background, eventually you nodded off to sleep. Nice transition. Next morning, you were up bright and early, preparing for the day ahead. You slept well, you slept okay, you slept terribly. Yeah, we'll say we slept well, why not? You fell asleep before you knew it and had woken up rested. Mom whined a bit about the firmness of the mattress, but Mom had only encouraged her to enjoy the trip while she could. While looking for a spot to get ready, you had some trouble finding a space of your own as the others were doing the same thing. Hope was perched on top of the counter, brushing his hair and tucking his legs every time someone wanted to move past. Parents were checking and double-checking and trickle-checking that they had everything, to the point where you had stopped listening to them altogether. You knew you wouldn't be returning to the RV at all that day. By the look of the backpack that were packed up and ready to go, you doubted anything was missing from them. It didn't take much longer until you all exited the RV in the bustle and headed into the Redwood National Park. Wow. Cove had his head tilted up towards the canopy of trees, his eyes wide as he took in the massive trunks on either side of you. You knew that the redwood trees here were considered the tallest trees on Earth, but you weren't prepared for exactly how huge they would be in person. Smile, you two. You spun just in time for Kara to snap a picture of you and Cove together, before she pointed the camera at Cliff, trying to get a shot despite his weak protest that she should just enjoy the moment. Your parents were walking behind the group a little, with Mom telling Ma some information she had read about the park in a brochure. Ma listened happily while looking around and taking the sights, every now and then asking a question or making a joke about something Mom had said. You smiled at them, thinking your mom must have read a lot of pamphlets to know so much about the park. Maybe you should come and work here as a tour guide if you know so much about the place. Elizabeth teased, earning a squeeze on the nose from your mom. She seemed to be enjoying herself, but you thought that might just be because she was amused by everyone else's reaction. Redwood trees are fascinating for centuries around you and can move when is investigators. No, we're fascinated by trees. I love a good hike in the woods and stuff. I just not always the best at camping or wanting to be out there all the time, but I do enjoy it, and I think it could be very beautiful, and a nice refreshing hike could be great, and getting the chance to take a bunch of pictures for sure. But carrying on. Surrounding you on either side, the enormous trees shone from the sky, the sunlight peeking through the canopy and speckling the path in front of you. Sheer size of redwoods made you feel like a teeny ant bustling along through the forest. They'd also decided on some casual nature walks, rather than any serious hiking. You strolled along at your own pace, taking in the scenery. Elizabeth sped up a little, smirking at Cove as she fell into place between the two of you, and immediately you could tell by her expression she was going to say something taunting. I can't believe your families are actually on vacation together. She threw her arms out, speaking with genuine sense of bewilderment. I would have joked about something like this happening, but now I'm not sure I want to give them any more ideas. Cove smiled at her, even if it was a little awkward, and continued walking along. Just watch. Next year, they'll be talking about their next new and amazing idea. She put on a fake voice deeper than her own. We should just sell both our houses and move in together. Think of how much we'd save on the mortgage. It was clear that Elizabeth was being sarcastic. Cole simply shook his head, not really bothered by her. He supposed he was used to it by this point. But seriously, they really do act like they're a single family, just because we all live across the street from each other. Elizabeth gave you and Cove a look, her eyes glistening with mischief as she stared at you. Maybe one day we will be related. Legally, anyway. She said it as though she was a gossiping old lady. But she almost immediately dropped the tone and nonchalantly said her real thoughts. At least, that's what Mom thinks. Cove still blushed, which made Elizabeth smile triumphantly, as though that was her whole purpose for teasing him. Then he mumbled quietly, refusing to make eye contact with either of you. I don't know why you think you're so funny when no one else does. Cut it out already, Cove was a point screaming. I'll marry you, Cove. You ignored Elizabeth. This would be something I would say in Jice or like some joke, so it's me well. I've thrown out, yeah, I'll marry you, why not? He looks at you in disbelief. He genuinely could not believe this is where the conversation had gone. Don't worry over it. You can take as long as you need to think on that. Cove frowned and reddened harder for pretending to ignore what you were saying. Your sister noticed what was happening. Ooh, he isn't going to engage with this topic. He groaned and they continued teasing and increased the speed of his walk. The day continued on with plenty to see and experience. You passed a few different activities that you would have liked to try out if you had the time, such as kayaking and rock climbing, but Mom said that they would have to wait for another trip. There was a little stream during the walk that you sat beside and set out a picnic for lunch, nibbling on a selection of fruit, sandwiches, and chips. Various birds flew overhead, and you made a game out of guessing the species that were hanging out in the trees nearby. You managed to get a couple of them right, including the kingfisher, and grabbed half of Cliff's sandwich. You were glad you got to do this in the end. You were just willing to only have one day at the park. You thought the long trip wasn't worth only one day here. You had more fun hanging out near the... I'm glad you ended up coming. It's a trip and being there that counts. It was definitely a special experience, and one you remembered for a long time to come. You smiled to yourself, committing the sights and sounds to memory. Great made his way back to the camp just as the sun was setting in the sky and the stars were appearing one by one. Everyone had enjoyed different parts of it most. You traded stories of which you thought while you were eating dinner, but afterwards you pitched in to help clean up. You, along with Elizabeth and Cove, got to the back of the RV early and spent some time together while the parents stayed outside longer. It was nice to have the space to yourself after the cramped journey there, and while Elizabeth had locked herself in the back room with her headphones, you and Cove were left in the main lounge area. Well, Cove. Yeah, we'll hang out with Cove. Might as well get comfortable. Who knows how long they'll be out there for. He took a seat on the sofa while Cove sat down on the other end, tapping his fingers against his knee. Cheese warmed a little at that, before being close to him never failed to feel exciting. You've seen Cove nearly every day for the past 5 years, but seeing him in a jacket was still somewhat unusual. In Southern California, he could get away with it. It was a simple difference from his normal clothes, yet you couldn't help noticing the way he looked right now. He looked great on him. Oh, we're getting into a whole thing. In fact, Cove always looked nice. Hey, there you go. She's having her moment. When Cove cleared his throat, your eyes snapped to his. He had an eyebrow raised and had clearly caught you staring out. Is everything okay? Where you gaze so entirely, yeah, don't worry about it. It looks nice. Yeah, everything was really good. You nodded. Yeah, everything's really good. Spoke knowingly to yourself about why you felt that way while Cove watched on in confusion. You decided to explain a part of it. You know, I hardly ever see you wearing a jacket, especially in the summer. Oh yeah, I like wearing a few layers as possible. It's easier that way. I'd rather be cold than extra hot, and it's kind of a pain to carry extra clothes around. My parents made me bring this jacket. I'm the same way, don't mind either way. I love wearing layers. I love layers and accessories too. Same way. They're bulky and heavy and they usually make me feel too warm. Cole smiled lightly at you and nodded. I've noticed. Pregnant hearing that. He noticed you too. Change subject, you asked him what he'd like to see. Change subject, yes. The conversation had run its course. Instead, you asked Cove about what else he would have liked to do in the park if he had more time here. Two of you ended up chatting about various outdoor activities available. Kayaking, rock climbing, hiking, horseback riding, wildlife walks. There were so many things to potentially choose from. Made agreement that if one of you ever had the chance to come back, you'd bring the other two. That way you could try it all together again. Parents all arrived soon after, each of them climbing into the RV and finding some place to sit down and rest their legs. Elizabeth, having heard the commotion, came out of the room for the first time since arriving and joined you all. Spent the evening chatting and playing a few games, enjoying the last evening of the trip together. Bedtime arrived with a blink of an eye. As the group hunkered down for the night, your moms did a final round to be sure nothing had been left behind. She explained that Cliff was going to start driving early in the morning, like on the first day, but would be letting everyone else in the group sleep. There wouldn't be a need for all of them to get up. Now was the time to check you hadn't left anything outside. You, as well as everyone else, were confident that you had all packed up inside the RV, which meant it was time to get some rest before the journey home tomorrow. Your mom and Elizabeth said goodnight, heading to the back room while you climbed up to the loft. Cove and his family got situated below in the previous set arrangement. Try to get comfortable as a million thoughts were running through your mind. It was hard to believe that the trip was practically over, and before you knew it, you'd be back in your own bed at home. Enjoyed the mini trip. You thought the trip would be okay, but it was time you enjoyed the mini trip. It was short, that was for sure, but you got to see and do so much during your time here. All in all, it was a nice break away from home. The minutes ticked by silently. It didn't take long for the soft snores of Cliff and Kyra to drift up to you. They were asleep now. You wondered if Cove was still awake and decided to poke your head out from the loft to find out. You blinked through the dark. Looking down the hall, you noticed Cove laying on his back, his eyes stared straight up at the ceiling. His seafoam hair was spread out of his sleeping bag. He must have been watching you because suddenly his eyes locked on yours. It was difficult to see much in the dim light, but you could make out the crook smile on his face well enough. You grinned back at an amazingly face Rachel. You grinned back at him. Ben shrugged in his bed while still smiling, or at least he thought he did. You asked for him to come over, then you went back to try to sleep, then you decided to have fun quietly. You asked him to come over? Cove looked unsure about it, but you were happy to see him slowly start to sit up anyway. His sleeping bag rustled as he moved, though he tried to go slow and froze up like a deer in the headlights every time he made a sound, watching his parents for any sign of movement. Eventually he managed to maneuver around his sleeping dad and make it up the ladder, standing at the bottom of the rung while he looked up at you and whispered, "What?" "Hi. Oh, it's nothing. Good night. How are you? We'll invite him up. You want to come up? Since we're both awake, we can hang out. Oh, it's like when we did our blanket fort before. We read a book. Oof, very cute." His eyes widened just so. You could only tell because he had come to where you were. Cove glanced behind him quickly, and your sleeping parents returned and turned back to you. Okay. You broke it in a grin and scooched back as far as you could, making space for Cove to crawl in. He was very tall, so it wasn't a great fit for him, but he managed to squeeze himself in. Luckily, you were short enough to leave him with some room. Oh, look at us, we're so adorable. You laid down next to each other on your side, face to face. You got under a blanket a bit. One of his arms was nestled under his head for comfort. The other had nowhere to go and was rested alongside his chest on the floor of the loft. Cole spoke softly to you. Isn't lofts like really teeny though? Like how are we fitting two people? It looks like he's on the whole length of it. I don't know. Not that this matters. I'm just curious. So what am I doing here? I don't know. I thought we could hang out. You can sleep here instead of the floor. Oh, I thought we could hang out. Cole's eye was dipped. You probably thought you had something more important than that going on. Oh, did I mess up again? Hold on. I think the green options are the way to go, and I want to double check what's going on. Hold on. Okay, and we're back. So I feel like the green this time around seems to be more than the blue. So we're gonna head in that direction because we want to work the relationship angle this way. So let's give it a try. I thought green originally was supposed to be like uncommittal or unsure or something, but I don't know. We'll go with green for the hair. Cleared his eyebrow, not having expected you to bring the topic up again. I'm still thinking about that. You don't have to worry about me that much, Jamie, but thanks. It's okay. Not sure about this. Cove swallowed loudly and noticed that he wouldn't look at you in the eyes anymore. You were feeling the nervousness too. You felt comfortable being so close to him. His reaction made you happy. Reaction made you happy? We'll go towards green. It was nice to know that this didn't seem like nothing to him. He wanted to take you seriously. You thought back on the trip and the little moment you got to spend together with Cove. It felt like this trip definitely had brought you together even more, and not just physically in the same space. Neither silently, you tried to ease things into the conversation, nudged him closer, touched his free arm lightly. Oh, we're going forward! Clearly! You laid your fingers on Cove's arm, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath them. Cove's face flushed dark enough to notice, even in the almost pitch-black RV cabin. The hand resting in front of him tightened, balling into a fist. You okay? I'm fine. I mean, I'm not dying or anything. Cove's eyebrows ran up nervously, but his smile widened. Curled himself deeper in the loft, closer to you. He looked away as he did it. There was almost no space left between he and you. Cove's breast tickled the side of your face. For a moment, you stayed together like that. Neither of you spoke a word. When your eyes locked again, Cove seemed almost taken aback by the situation, as though it hadn't completely hit him what it was going to feel like to do this till just now. He opened his mouth to say something, but shut it tight before anything came out. Oh, we can make a huge choice here. Okay, so I'm gonna save just in case, because we're trying to like make it so that it's a proper relationship and we get like the best of the story, but I don't know if like moving forward is gonna end up messing everything up. But we'll go for it. Moving closer, eyes half closed, you slipped towards his so slowly. Close for immediately, feels body trembling against yours as you neared. You grew close enough to be one motion away from placing your lips together. Then all of a sudden, all at once, he bolted upright, completely forgetting the restrictions of location, smacking his head against the roof of the RV with a loud crack, making you gasp loud. Ow! Cove, were you okay? Cove didn't answer. He fell back to the loft floor in a flustered pile. He pressed one hand against his head and the other to his face as he groaned in pain. The sound of the moving RV floor startled you, and when you looked over to the side, you noticed Cliff was similarly shot up and was looking around wildly. Wake up, people, something happened. Cliff reached over to where Kyra was on the couch, and she whined as he shook her out of sleep, enough not to be interrupted by the chaos. What's going on? All lights come on, he scrambled on the blankets to avoid being seen, but it was too late. Cove, where are you? Jamie, are you— Ow. It only took a second for Kyra to figure out where his son had gone, and you soon heard Cliff's chuckle as you two realized. You were warned there wasn't much room up there, bud. Cove groaned terribly again, but this time it was out of humiliation. He moved his hand to a sore scalp to also cover his shame rather than voice his parents. What was those noise out here? To your horror, the door to the RV opened. It was with as well as your mom's peeked their head. Okay, I'm glad I'm saved. I think what we're gonna do is go back and do like the slower view. This one's a lot of— I might end up doing a lot of changing and then showing a bunch of different kind of endings or possibilities as we go, because I'm curious to see them. I don't know that I'll go through all of this all again, because I think you have to go from beginning and then go unless you've been saving for like each episode. So we might check out a bunch of different options as we go. Is everything okay? It's nothing. Sorry for waking you up. Cove curled into himself, completely humiliated as he apologized a couple more times, not loud enough for anyone or any you to hear though. He laughed, tried to numb. It stopped your chuckling from coming out. Not to make things worse, but everyone's staring at us. Cove peeked from behind his green hair that had fallen to his eyes and quivered. Kyra casually came over to the edge of the loft, patted her son on the back. Come to mama, baby, you can't stay there. There was no putting it off. Cove climbed down the ladder, his face still red as tomato when he reached the bottom. Dad gave him a nudge on the shoulder as he passed, trying to hold back renewed laughter, and his mom pulled him over to give his head a quick look over. After an announcement, it wasn't any more serious than a bump. Cove shuffled over to the sleeping bag on the ground, collapsed into it, not caring if he should be more cautious with his head right now. Alright, shoved over, let's get some sleep. Took me to the back of the RV from your mom's and Elizabeth. They really had been watching this unfold like it's a piece of entertainment. But at that, they quickly said goodnight and headed to bed. With nothing more to do, you could lay back down with your lights off again. Stayed there completely still until sleep finally overtook you. Okay, so what we're gonna do is go here, menu, and I want to try— oh, it just pops us back in. Okay, so went to sleep. We'll try our second option because it seems like the green for some reason seems to be the way to go recently. Closed the distance completely and nuzzled your face into his chest. You could hear his heart beating rapidly. Liv stiffened up and let out a yelp, which he quickly bit down on his lip to stifle. Gave me an apologetic look. This still wasn't bad for him, just surprise. After a few more moments, he settled in, his breath deep and steady. Rest his chin against the top of your head. You could peek up and see him smiling, and it made you happy to know he was enjoying the moment too. Two of you fell asleep before long, cuddled up together. Oh, that's a better one, yeah. When you woke up the next morning, it was to the rumble of the RV as it traveled the long journey home. You noticed quickly that you weren't as warm as you had been during the night, and when you checked next to you, Cove was gone. Thinking sleepily, you peeked over the edge of the loft to find out where he had gone. Maybe he slept back to a spot on the floor during the night. However, you noticed him sitting on the couch, talking quietly with his mom, his head hung in embarrassment. Your movement gave you away, and Kyra suddenly looked up and caught your eye. Shamefully smiled amusedly at you, and it was obvious what happened. Cove had gotten away with it. They found him there in the loft, and then you woke up while he was trying to explain. You knew it was going to be a long, long time before you lived this one down, if you ever did. Soon your boss and Elizabeth emerged from their room, dressed and ready for the day of travel. Spent most of the day hanging out together in the RV, savoring the last few hours of vacation. Kara suggested a few different travel games she used to play with Cove while he was younger, and you all had a great time competing against each other. A little later in the day, you tried to talk to Cove about what had happened in the loft, but he simply apologized and changed the subject. It's a bit too much for him to try and speak on, especially right now. You understood. When the RV finally pulled onto your street, it was well into the night, and you were looking forward to crawling into your own bed after the last few days away. Everyone else must have been feeling the same because it immediately agreed that unpacking and cleaning the RV would wait until morning. Once home again, you went straight up to your room and dropped onto your bed, shoes and all. You're happy to be in your own bed, felt weird to be alone. It's good to be alone. You wish you were still on the trip and missed being near Cove. I'm always happy to be in my own bed after a trip. You stretched out with a smile on your face, enjoying having space to yourself. With those last few thoughts drifting through your mind, it wasn't long before you dozed off to sleep. Tomorrow, life would go on like normal. Alright, so we got to play around with that one a little bit, which I really enjoyed. I think I'm going to leave it there with that one. I'm not sure which one would be the kind of better ending, really, but I enjoyed it. Very happy. It was a lot of fun. I like that we seem to be getting more into it. I don't know if certain choices we make really affect later, or if we just keep the fondness and then therefore we can work with that. It seems like it's more like the choices from the first one make a little bit of difference just in memory, and then that's about it. And it's more that you have the fondness or crush or whatever as you set up before. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Super excited. We're getting into the DLCs next, and I think we got some more scenes, so I'm hyped. I can't wait, and I will see you guys in the next one.